Hello, everyone. We're going to start welcoming you to our Gov School class today, and we appreciate you coming. And we're going to get started here in a couple minutes after the hour. And I do. This is not going to be a recorded version. It's actually recorded live on YouTube. So just know that going into it. I do appreciate those who have an interest in recording it, but we want to maintain that on YouTube, YouTube Live. And you can go straight to the channel there and download that if you need to, and pull that out for your viewing a little bit later. And we appreciate you coming today. And we'll get started in just a couple of minutes as we let everybody into the room. You do have the ability to unmute yourself and for questions if you'd like, but when you come in, please maintain your mute status. It just really helps everyone to with a question when the question is answered and their ability to enjoy the presentation that we're going to do today. We thought we'd pull one together with one of our favorite speakers, and that's Professor Chris Hanks. He's going to talk to us about success and sort of the characteristics of success. And I'm going to lean into it a little bit with him. And we're going to talk specifically about RFPs. We've done this in sort of a tag team effort in the past, and we want to try to do that again today. And so, Chris, you're here today. As we'll continue, I'd like to give everybody just a few minutes to get into the room, but you can go ahead and I think you probably have the ability to just speak to us right now. And I don't know if you're going to use any kind of slideshow, but I'll give you that access if you need to. Okay.
No slides, just hopefully just a conversation about stuff that matters.
Yeah, I found early too that not to complicate things. That's one of my key. Hopefully, the key to success is not to overcomplicate. So we got them coming in still until it trickles. We'll just chit chat before we get started. And I do appreciate we've got a good. It's actually I'm a little bit surprised we got so many folks coming here. I figure everybody's already headed off for a long holiday weekend. I think we do see that we're going to be closed ourselves on Monday. Folks still coming into the room here. So now it looks like it's slowed a little bit. I'll watch the background to see if we see some folks. If you do get accidentally knocked off, I know just the other day I was talking to one of our future clients, and we were doing a presentation. She was in Iowa, and she says, "Oh, there's a tornado siren," and that was right outside that big tornado going through, and I think it was Greenfield.
Hey,
So
how you doing? Yes,
had
it
us all
is.
worried. So we appreciate everybody coming in. Please maintain your mute status as you come into the room. That helps us out with the background. And as I put you on mute, you do have the capacity to unmute yourself. But if you have a question, then we'll try to answer those questions as we go along. But it does help with the background. Okay. And so just to get started here, I appreciate everybody coming today to Gov School. I'm still letting folks in the room and still continuing. Started to say there, if you do get knocked off, feel free to drop back on. We also have this live on YouTube. So you can visit it right after. There'll be a recording there available for you to actually go in and download that recording if you like. It's still coming in here. But here we are with Professor Chris Hanks. Chris is a founder and executive director of the Institute for Entrepreneurship, and he's got some extensive experience in really what it takes to get out there and be successful as a small business owner. And he works with leaders in that area. He's a past professor at Kennesaw State University, University of Georgia, Georgia State University, where he's helped develop entrepreneurship programs and has led some programs at some 60 universities in some way and helped develop those. As you see here from his bio, he is passionate about creating and working with small businesses and entrepreneurs, and he has himself owned multiple businesses, including areas in music and e-commerce and publishing and export ventures. I've known Chris for some 30 plus years now, it seems like. Yeah, it's been a long time. And so I always bring him in whenever I start getting to questions from our membership about various topics related to success. And, I think the number one question I always get, Chris, is how do they land a successful RFP? How do they really get in there and win that first business opportunity as they enter into the government space or grow their business as they actually do win a contract and then get the second, the third. And so I thought you could share maybe some thoughts with this group this afternoon as they head out maybe for a long weekend, and they can start and think about things before they head into really the next part of the year. June, July, August, as you probably know, is a key time in government contracting, specifically as local and state governments end their fiscal years and start new ones. And as we also see the federal government moving in October to a brand new, completely new fiscal year. So it's a time of contracting opportunities. And maybe you don't know this. I know you're involved in a lot of the private sector, but this is going to be the largest spending period in American history for local and state governments, and they're all sitting on a lot of cash. And so they're pushing that out. I know here in Georgia, we've got a record surplus as well as a record held in reserve. And they're starting to, we will see large infrastructure projects coming forward. And I think we see that really in just about every state. And of course, at the federal level, the Infrastructure Act has pushed into down to the local governments, and you're seeing that really being released right now. So it's a grand opportunity for most small businesses and allows them to really step in. So with all that leading, with those lead comments there, let's see what you got to offer this group together as I step in here and see how many folks are still waiting to get in. So how are you doing? Good?
Yeah, well, no, good. All right. Well, thanks, Mark. I definitely appreciate the invitation. I'm hoping this will be a valuable conversation. The hard thing about doing this kind of thing is there's no shortage of content. But I think sometimes we're content soaked and we remain unchanged, right? There was not that one thing that changed everything, right? What's that thing that I really need to focus on? And I'm starting to learn that I don't know if it's the lectures that change us, and it's the information that changes us. I think sometimes my job is not to give out more information, although we have the largest amount of information on entrepreneurship than any other organization, but to edit it and say, okay, if you only learned one thing, what's the one thing? If there was only one thing you took away, what's the one thing? Because you're overwhelmed, right? Everybody's overwhelmed on this call. We all share this. We're all probably pretty good at filling our schedules, but we are probably pretty bad at fulfilling our schedules. And there's a big difference. And so I'm a little worried about saying stuff that doesn't change things. And so I'm hoping I can do that. I'm hoping to maybe take questions or whatever. So because it's when you're talking to just a screen, you can't read the body language very well. You don't know if you're on track or off track, or if you're saying stuff that's really helping, or say, hey, okay, that part's not helping, but I really need help in this other part. So anyway, I guess that's my sort of way of just throwing out a disclaimer at the beginning. But one of the things that like I spent a long time developing curriculum, developing centers, developing institutes for people to come and grow and people to come and learn. And part of that process is you get to you get to be around a lot of really successful people and say, okay, what are they like? What is the key? What is the lesson? What are some of those things? And one of the things that I've learned about being around so many successful people is successful people do what average people don't. Like it's a simple concept, but it's true. I found I used to have this really weird belief, and I still do. It's still in my head somewhere. But I used to think that success was reserved for people that were not like me, and people who grew up not like me. And it's reserved for the select few, and the people who are really successful in business, and the people who win all these government bids, and the people who do all these amazing things. Well, that's a level, but I'm this guy. I'm not at eye level with those folks. And what I learned is, there's a lot of dumb rich people. There's a lot of these successful people, what made them different is they just were really intentional about doing stuff that average people don't. And I guess, I was trying to lead off with like one thing to take away is like, what's going to be that little extra something for you? The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is that little extra. What's going to be your extra? I have no idea what businesses are represented on this Zoom. I have no idea what types of industries we have, what types of businesses we have, and all that kind of stuff. But here's one thing that I do know, that every one of your customers perceive you as a commodity. You are absolutely substitutable to somebody else in their eyes, right? You know, we like to say, but my business is different in this way, or we're different because. But if you are substitutable with some type of, you know, a competitor in the eyes of the customer, like if there is hey, you know what, there's an equal substitution, so I'm going to spend my money elsewhere, you are by definition a commodity. And so what is that extra? What is that little thing that is going to become a big little thing, and it's going to be a big breakthrough? What's the extra in extraordinary for you? And those are not easy questions. It sounds trite, it sounds cliche, but those are the things that start separating us, right? Winning an RFP, you have to have a capability statement, right? What's the thing about you? Why should I choose you? Why? And I know what you say, and it sounds pretty good, and you probably wordsmithed it really well, and you use some good adjectives and some big words, but why should I talk about you? Why should I go out and tell 10 of my friends about your business? What's the difference? And is that difference relevant to me? Does it matter to me? Is that difference really tangible to me? So these are the kinds of things, and the kinds of things that make us a little bit, that when we start honing in on some of these basics, we start seeing a difference, right? I think that, like, one of the things that I'm doing, I'm taking about 100 CEOs, median side, about 50 million in revenue, and we're going to go in the woods for 3 days. And we're going to do a retreat. And the entire retreat, this is the first time I'm doing a retreat where we're just going to focus on one thing and one thing only. And all we're going to focus on is their story. What is that story? What is the story you tell yourself? What is the story that you tell your employees? What is the story you tell your customers? What is that story? Because my narrative that I tell myself impacts how I show up every day, right? You've got a narrative going on in your head that's affecting and limiting the growth of your business. You know, oh, well, I don't think we'll ever get above 10 million in revenue. I don't think we'll ever be able to do this. I don't think I'm good enough to do that. I don't think that I'll ever find good employees. I don't think I'll ever be able to do blank, blank, and blank. We tend to tell ourselves this story versus, like, okay, I'm going to craft a story. I am going to craft a story that is compelling, that invites other people in, and I am going to start believing in that. You know, it's one of the things that we call, like, I guess the technical term for it is casting vision, right? We want to cast a vision, a picture of the future that produces passion in you. What is that picture? A picture. I need to see it. Don't tell me. Take forever. You know, don't tell me that you're going to, like, we're going to be the premier organization. I don't know what, I can't see premier. That's not a picture to me. What does premier mean? How many employees will you have by this date? What's your gross margin look like? What's it going to feel like when you get there? What are the things that we're going to celebrate? So there's a lot of questions that go under that. But I want to be certain of the things that I do not see. It is not facts that move mountains. I want to be able to see it. 3 years from today, here's exactly the picture of my business. Like, when you have that kind of clarity in your vision, you attract resources to you. You attract people. You know, I was actually out earlier this week with a pretty significant business owner in the Atlanta area, and he was complaining about his inability to find good people. And he says, you know, I just can't find good people. And I said, well, then why? What is it about your business that good people don't want to work for? I think the wrong filter, the wrong narrative is, I can't find good people, versus, hey, you know what? There's something about my business, or I'm going to do something so different, so compelling, so provocative in my business that I'm going to attract the right kind of people for me. and repel the wrong kind of people from me. Because I think great culture should attract as well as repel. We're going to attract the people who believe what we believe and see what we see. And then we want to repel the people who says, yeah, I don't think that's possible, or I don't think that's worthy. That's fine. Culture, one of my favorite definitions of culture is people like us do things like this. And if you're not part of us, that's okay. There's probably somewhere else you could be and do well. So that was a lot of words, but let me try to simplify this a little bit. Successful people do what average people don't, and you need a story. You need a vision. And that sounds so basic, but I think that I think that in order for us to be great, we have to have a vision of something great that does not exist yet, and not using general words, but specific words. Like, one day I'm going to be really successful. I can't see that. That's too general for me. Do other people see your vision? Can other people repeat your vision? Right? Because like when we talk about things that make us success, I really believe that all entrepreneurs, we basically, and I hold the entrepreneurs that are members of the Institute for Entrepreneurship accountable there's 3 areas where I think that we all need. We need a vision, we need a process, and we need intentionality. Because I got to have the picture, like, here's the hill I'm going to take, here's the flag I'm going to take, I'm going to go out and get that. But I need a process. You can't wing your way to sustainable growth. You can't out hustle the next person. You can't make a whole lot of money as an entrepreneur being the doer of the thing that you do. So you got to learn how to be the grower of the thing that you do. I've got to grow this business. I can't be the doer anymore. I'm the bottleneck if I'm that. So I am going to have a process for that, a process for scale. So I need vision, I need process, and I need intentionality. I need to be intentional. I need to be so intentional about this. What's the most important thing I'm going to do this week? It's this. Okay, I'm going to be crazy intentional about that. So if we have vision, process, and intentionality, and if we have that really, then all of a sudden things are going to start getting more fun. They're going to get better. It's still going to be hard, because starting and growing a business is the hardest job that exists in business. So it's hard for sure. So it'll never be not hard. I think all of us on here signed up for doing a hard thing, but that's okay. That's what makes it great. I'm kind of glad in a way that entrepreneurship is kind of hard, because it keeps all those entrepreneurs on the sidelines. And we're the ones fighting that hard fight each and every day. And I think that that's a cool thing. And I like being around people who are doing hard things. So yeah. So anyway, all right. So vision. If your vision is fuzzy, you're going to have a hard time attracting opportunities. We can't have fuzzy vision. We've got to be very, very clear. Clarity will give us power. We have to be absolute ambassadors of clarity. We also need to be, great leaders simplify. In one sentence, why should I do business with you? In one sentence, what's the most important thing that we should do this week? In one sentence, and it doesn't have to necessarily be legalistically one sentence, but meaning, like, if I can't state it briefly, then I can't, then your employees, your shareholders, your investors, your suppliers, your vendors, and all that stuff, they can't take that message, and it can't be portable and memorable for them. And so I have to be very, very clear and simple. Sometimes people don't follow us because we're not easy to follow. And the weird thing about growth is, as we grow, things get way more complex. But complexity kills growth. Dan Sullivan, who's probably the most well-known business coach, he wrote a lot of books, and all that. But anyway, he's got a quote that says, you can't scale until you reach a new state of simplicity. And so saying, okay, I've got to have something that's repeatable. I got to do something. I got to simplify my processes. I've got to keep things simple. If I start out by myself and then I hire my first employee, there's two lines of communication between me and my employee. I go and hire 5 people. There are 120 lines of communication now. If I have 100 employees, I have no idea, because I can't do that kind of math. I have no idea how many lines of communication are, but you can see how just going from 2 employees to 5 employees, we've just gotten really complex. At a staff meeting where we all were present, we are all walking out of there with different messages or different feelings, or can you believe she said this, or can you believe he did that? And so if we're really simplifying what we do, why we do it, what needs to be done, what's not going to get done, we just have to be really, really simple. There's a power in simplicity. Steve Jobs was pretty famous for that, where he would gather his executives in a room and they would say, okay, well, you know what? What are the things that Apple needs to focus on this year? And they would debate and fight and come up with a list. And then he says, okay, well, let's get that list to 10. And then they would gather, fight, get the list to 10. And then he would come in there and says, okay, now get the list of 3. And then they would get to the list of 3. And then they would say, okay, now we're going to forget everything else. He said that he was more proud of what Apple did not do than what Apple actually did. We have to simplify. I know that we've got a lot of things to do. I know that you guys your inboxes are full. You've got more messages to get to than you have time in the day. You are overwhelmed. What's most important? What if I spend 80% of my time on the things that created the most value? How much different would my organization be? What if I spent just 30 minutes a day? I woke up early and I said, okay, well, I don't have an additional 30 minutes a day. Okay, that's fine. Although I can give you an extra 30 minutes. In fact, I can give you an extra 45 minutes a day. This has been proven with research. CEOs who do not check their messages first thing in the morning tend to have about 45 more minutes per day. Because what happens when first thing you do when you show up to work and you check your messages, you tend to start firefighting. And you tend to start addressing those issues. And now urgent things are taking away from doing the most important things. You tend to focus on what's most loud, not what's most important. And so if I just said, look, I'm going to get up and I'm going to focus on the most important things, then I'll check messages and all that stuff. I'm going to spend 52 minutes doing the most important thing. You tend to get more time in your day. But that being said, what if you had 30 minutes? What if you just spent 30 minutes on the thing that mattered most every single day? That kind of compound effort. We talk about compound interest. The compound ROI of focusing on the thing that matters most at a specific time every single day for a specific measure of time versus reacting to what happens, that separates successful people from non-successful people. So anyway, okay. I feel like I'm just fire hosing with conversation, Mark. So I don't know if there's a question or if I should pause here. If I'm even landing on the things that I think will make the most difference.
Well, I think you are. First of all, as we're seeing if there are questions, I'll give some folks the opportunity to ask you questions. I pull out this one little quote I use for all of our presentations, and that is Coldplay song. You're the one I wanted to find. I think you talked about visioning yesterday. So just remember that. And the other one I always use is it's supposed to be hard. If it were easy, everybody would do it. I think you've called attention to that as well. So here we are with really a renowned expert in entrepreneurship, and here's his company. But I would like to see if there's any questions from our members out there. And if you have a question, just raise your hand, and this is an opportunity to pose those to someone who really, I think, knows what he's talking about. So, any questions on entrepreneurship or maybe some of the things you're faced with?
Chris, I have a question if you're available.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so you talk about people that are overwhelmed with complexity. I have the opposite problem. I just started my business and I'm trying to procure a lot more business, and I'm not sure how to go about it.
So you just started your business, so no revenue yet?
No revenue yet.
Zero revenue. When will you, like, how much revenue will you have 1 year from today?
500,000 or better.
500,000, okay. And well, I'm probably going to get too in the weeds. I probably need to pull back a little bit. I apologize. Okay, so let me just focus on the question. I was going to nerd out a little bit because I tend to nerd out pretty quickly. So your question is, okay, so so restate your question for me, please.
How do I get more people to pay attention to me compared to my competitors?
Okay, why should more people pay attention to you than your competitors?
Because I'm a harder working and I give them a better product. Not just the product that's produced, but the work ethic behind it.
Okay, so if you were going to use, like, say, 10 words to describe the benefit to me of being harder working and the benefit to me to have a better product, how will my life change because I get a better product and that you're harder working? In 10 words, what would that be?
Boy, that's a good question.
And it's hard too. So I don't want to put you on the spot or make you feel so. These are hard things to do.
Right.
It is hard to be brief. It is hard to be compelling, but these are the exercises when we talk about simplicity and all that stuff. All of us think that, well, actually, that may be true. We may publicly state that we're better and secretly be afraid that we're not. But there's no shortage of saying, I'm better than the competitors. We provide better customer service. We are harder working. We have a better product. We have a better service than our competitors.
Right.
Our customers don't believe us.
Right.
So we need to be compelling with that. Like, here's an example. This is going to sound like a very arrogant example. I'm just reminded of this since my website is being shown here. If I was trying to convince you to join the Institute, one of the things I could say, I wouldn't say it because I don't need to say it anymore. It sounds arrogant. But anyway, it's like, okay, you know what? I want you to join the Institute. It says, yeah, but why should I? There's other CEO organizations I could be a part of. What's so great about you guys? I said, okay, you know what? 1 year from today, whatever your EBITDA is, it will be at least 129% more than what it is today. You said, well, that's kind of arrogant. You haven't seen my financial statements. You don't know how much money I even make yet. I said, that's correct. However, if you achieve less than that, you'll be the weakest CEO I've ever worked with. It's a way or a tactic to get away, to kind of cut through the noise versus we're better or here's what we do. You don't really care what I do. You care about the benefit to you. Correct. And if your biggest problem that you're struggling with is I need to make more profit, I need more EBITDA, then that ties to the thing that you're concerned about the most. And so sometimes we have to guess. My customer cares most about blank. Therefore, I am going to talk directly to that need. I'm going to be very direct about the need versus talking about how many years I've been in business. Features back up benefits. But I only care about the benefits. And here's a little example. Maybe this is a better example. I don't know why I used my EBITDA example. Let's say I wanted you to join, let's say I owned a gym and I wanted you to join my gym. I could bore you to death with how long I've been in business, with all the equipment that I have, that the small business award that I won, and I could go on and on and on describing my gym. That's one way, and that's a lot of us business owners, we fall into that trap. That's describing features versus a benefit. You join my gym, in 3 months, you are going to lose 20 pounds or else I'll double your money back. Then you say, hey, well, how long have you been around? What kind of equipment do you have? Features back up the benefit of what you're promising. You are making a promise to the customer. That's marketing. Operations, you are delivering that promise to your customers. That's operations, right? What's the promise? How do I back it up? So you need a compelling promise, something that stands out, something that people are going to go, wow, I'm interested.
Awesome. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, no, thanks. I hope that helped.
You know, Chris, on building on what you've talked about here a little bit, also, you know, as I go through with members and I talk to them specifically about the parts and the process of writing an RFP, we look at the parts of them, and I always remind them that, you know, that it's not the when you approach this, it's not that you go in and you're seeking to win the RFP. That's certainly a goal, okay? But the first thing you really are trying to do is build the confidence in the contracting officer who's reviewing the response that you've sent back. So you're building that confidence, going in there, convincing them. And that's where that, as you point out, bringing the story, bringing that company, your story to that organization, so that they fully understand who you are and what you do. Because when you build that confidence, then the rest of it, they can handle your costs. They can handle that you might be a little bit higher than somebody else. They can handle, you know, maybe your location, you're not right quite where they need to be at. But what they can't handle is recommending someone who can't get the job done. And so you really have got to make sure that you've convinced them that you can get the job done. So we're getting some questions here. And so Mary has asked her first. Mary, if you want to unmute yourself and you can actually ask your question.
Sure. Well, first, go Dogs from Atlanta myself.
Nice. Good intro.
I was curious, Chris, if you have worked in a capacity where you've actually written proposals or worked on it or overseen a team that has written winning proposals, and if there, in your experience, was ever sort of a through line thing that you repeatedly put into your RFPs that you felt like had that winning factor to it. And I know that it's a lot easier said than done to have some secret sauce, but I do feel like with my team, we put certain proposals out and we think it's a really winning bid, and then it just doesn't get it. And we're often wondering, like, when is there going to be that like watershed moment where it's like, oh, that's the thing that really just makes our proposal stick out ahead of our competitors.
Well, I'll take a shot at this, but Mark will probably have a much better response than me. So I'd like to hear Mark's opinion, because I think that's going to matter more than mine. And also, I'm also hampered by that because Mark's written more and Mark's more successful at it than I am. Also, the fact that you already kind of touched on some of the things I probably would have recommended. Like you said, magic sauce, right? Because I'd be curious what that is. Like, how would you finish this sentence for me? You are the only blank that does only blank. What are the blanks?
We are the only staffing firm that can provide you 50 resumes within a 4-hour turnaround, I bet.
So you make a promise of 50 resumes within 4 hours.
Yes.
And the benefit of that to the reader of that RFP is what? What's the biggest benefit to them? How does their life change because of that promise?
They don't have to wonder what the time to fill is going to be getting somebody in the role. When they're, maybe shortchanged for time, they don't have the time to go sourcing for candidates themselves, or they don't have the time to sit around and wait for a less effective staffing firm to go and find somebody. We do the job quicker, and we also offer you more options. We're not just giving you one candidate and saying, hey, we hope this works. We're trying to do speed. We're trying to showcase our speed to delivery, I guess is what you would say.
Yeah. So I like everything you said. So I'm just wondering why you're not winning, why they're not winning. But I will just point out, when you tell me that you're going to give me 50 resumes in 4 hours, I wouldn't make the connection that you just did. That's not going to leave me, because the benefit to me of 50 resumes in 4 hours is what? Could be 50 really bad resumes. All of a sudden, you just overwhelm me with stuff to do.
Okay.
Versus, what's the promise? You're saying that you are going to find me what? Like, you're going to find me what kind of candidate by what time, and if you don't, here's the guarantee. Like, we need a guarantee, right?
Okay.
You know, so like, I would want to get more tight on that versus, okay, you give me 50 resumes. Well, yeah, but they could be bad resumes, or that's a lot of work for me. Versus something that's just much more powerful and tangible to me, might be where I tweak it, you know. And this is one of the analogies when you teach a lot, you come up with all these really bad analogies, and you never know which one's going to land. So I don't know if this could be like a bad analogy, but I kind of like, to me, it's kind of like, I got this vision of a safe cracker. You know, like, if we were going to go to this safe and we wanted to break in and we wanted to crack this safe, you turn the knob a little bit to your right. It's like, yeah, now you're going to go a little bit to your left, a little bit to your right, a little bit to your left, and all of a sudden it opens. And then that's where all the gold is. So, we're just turning the dial, I guess, if that makes any sense. Like, hey, I don't know if it's 50 resumes. That's not a wow. I'm not going to go home and call 5 people and say, I found somebody who's going to give me 50 resumes in 4 hours. But I bet you have a wow that I would want to tell people about. Right? My life should be fundamentally better because I've met you, if we're going to do business together.
Got it. Well, thank you. I think just to piggyback off that, I won't take up too much time, but I think with writing proposals for the government, I oftentimes hesitate to be like overly overstate what it is that we can do and what we guarantee, what we promise, because I know that at the end of the day, a lot of those contracting officers want to not see a lot of fluffy language and not have it be
Right.
like really emotional. So maybe Mark, you can speak to that too. I find that that's also something hard to.
I would totally agree.
to
We
tread
don't
on.
want fluffy. I want clear, like, meaning I'm going to get you this many candidates or this many employees in this amount of time. That's clear. I don't want fluffy for sure. I think not only government, but I think customers are turned off by fluffy.
What I would add to that, Chris, I think you really actually touched the answer, I think, really well, what you provided. One thing that we have found in research is that the decision-making process that you find in local government, specifically in state government to some extent, that you see an influence of both social and emotional factors, things really you can't control. The whole concept of the theory of the firm, why we contract with each other, sort of in this marketplace, in the government market space, can be impacted by that. And so just be aware that oftentimes it's not anything you've done wrong. It's just that there's other factors that are in play. The second part of that is, I'm glad to hear that you don't really believe in sort of the fluff. That's probably a good thing as well. Making sure that you speak to brevity and clarity, and also accuracy, making sure that everything you point back to the organization is what they're seeking. Oftentimes, I really stress the importance of structure and your response back on an RFP based on what the government's told you. Take their format, their proposal, and only use that in the response back. And even to the point of answering the questions, you don't have to use the same language. Of course, maybe use some of the language key parts when you respond back, but at least the outline. So if they ask you a specific question at first and the second and third, make sure you answer back first and second and third. Key to also is not leaving anything unsaid. Okay, so if they ask a question, speak to it, even if you can't provide an answer. Okay, you don't have to get 100 on everything. So but go ahead and take a shot at it, or tell them that you can't do this particular item, and make sure you do that. Staffing, I think everybody who's in staffing knows that it's a competitive field. There's a lot of organizations that are procuring, but there's also a lot of organizations that are responding to them in that process. So it's going to be a tough area. So you really have to draw in. The other thing is, I heard Chris say earlier about doing research. Go in and actually, maybe somebody here in the chat room said, learn your customers' pain points. Go into the if you're working with a city or a county or a hospital, go in and read the minutes and the agendas of their public meetings. Learn what's happening in that community. Learn what's important to them. And you should be able to find that in those agendas and those minutes of those meetings and bring that into the conversation back to that organization in your proposal. Just some thoughts there. Liaza, you have your hand up. If you'd like to ask your question, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, I have like a question about the technical. I am new with can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I am new with government contractings, and my question is because I'm confused with this. Um, for the reps and cert, some solicitation they want us to comply terms and condition. So I'm confused. Do I need to comply what they want in the terms and condition, or should I just send to them the reps and cert?
Thank you for that question. I'll take that one for Chris because he's not going to probably know those very detailed questions about government contracting. But so for all of you that are somewhat new, your representation certifications are part of your federal registration, the FARs, basically you're at acquisition.gov. Okay. And in your SAM registration, really when you go in and you actually look at your profile on the left-hand side, it will show you everything you've already agreed to. You probably agreed to maybe 20 or 30 and made representation for 20 or 30 statements, and you certify that that's true. You can go in and on this left-hand side, just tap on the reps and certs. It's called FARs, Federal Acquisition Regulation, and then DFARS, Defense. And it'll pop up and you can download that, and you would include that with federal. Now, SAM and the reps and certs at the federal level, unless it's got some money attached to it, it does not apply to the local and state government. Okay, and local and state government, they will have their own terms and conditions or potentially local ordinances that they may ask you that you have to comply with. So you would not attach your reps and certs to that. Only use what they're speaking to. They're independent. We have a home rule philosophy in the United States. They make their own rules, and so you know that going into it. But at the federal level, now it's become easier and easier. They just want you to attach what they have. Hopefully in the future, you actually will be able to send it to the contracting officer directly online, and they have the details, and you can download those. Okay. You also sometimes they do want you to still include those in your proposal, and they'll give you some specific ones they want to make sure you're aware of. And in the form, probably either the 1449 or whichever form that the federal government uses, they will put those in there, and you just go ahead and agree to them at that level. Hopefully that's helpful.
Okay, and I have another question too about the past performance. Since I'm new with the business, how could I give them a past performance even I don't have any business here? But the thing is, I have a business in the other country. Can I use that as my past performance to here and submit it to the government?
Thank you for that question. I'm going to actually let Chris, if he wants to take a stab at that. So I get a lot of times clients who would ask that question and say, well, I don't really have any past performance. I just started this company and I want to win my first contract. They're asking me to give them some examples. And I would just say before that, if you've got past performance in a foreign country, that's certainly past performance. So I think you should be able to use that. That's not something that would not be accepted. So to give you some examples of your work. Well, how do you tell Chris? How do you tell folks about how to demonstrate their work when they really have not had any solid contracts yet when they're sort of starting out?
Well, I look for hard evidence that exists of your accomplishments. To me, that's different than past performance, meaning like there is a woman that I knew, that I talked to that was raised 3 really great boys in a very bad area of Atlanta by herself, and she was saying that she didn't have any when she didn't have any past performance, or she didn't have any sort of experience to demonstrate to potential investors about her venture. And I thought that was a ridiculous statement because you have shown grit, you have shown tenacity, you have shown the most important skill in business, which is the skill of I'll do whatever it takes, because you raised 3 boys on your own. And if somebody doesn't say that that's hard evidence of accomplishment, then I think they're nuts. So meaning like, I don't think it has to be direct. You know, like, hey, I have a staffing business. Well, I've never owned a staffing business before. Well, so what? There is evidence in your past that shows that you can do what you're promising to do. And the more compelling my vision is, the less I'll look at your past. The more concrete your guarantee is, the less I'll look at your past. You know, because past is all the past is doing is diminishing my risk, right? Oh, you've done this before, so chances are it's not as risky to go with you. Well, if I have a guarantee, you're less concerned about that. You know, like I have a guarantee that other people won't offer because we're that committed to, and we're that sure that we can deliver what we promised. Here's my guarantee. So I would also argue that guarantees outweigh past, because the only reason I want past performance is I'm trying to diminish my risk.
Mm-hmm. So
And I'll echo that. You go ahead.
I'm sorry. Is it okay to use my the business that I had in the other country to here?
I think it's outstanding that you have some experience with another business in another country.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, also whenever we're advising clients, always, draw your company's and your personal background into that answer to that past performance requirement or to that request for reference, and build that story of why you're listing them and what you did for them, so that whenever they do contact them, and they usually do, they're able to engage in that. And that helps build the confidence that you're listening to what they're asking for. And not only that, but you can tie that and translate that back to what they're asking you to actually do. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'll go ahead and apologize. I'm having to delete emails as we're putting them into the chat. If you don't mind, no email sharing. And this is a public chat, and I don't want you'll be spammed, and we don't want that to happen. Okay. So we have that. Any more questions? Any more questions today?
That's oh
Go ahead.
no, that's it. That's all my questions. Thank you for all the answers.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question here, gentlemen. This is Ron Yamas here. When reviewing RFPs, I guess if you've been on that, if either of you have been on that side of reviewing submissions, one of the questions that came up earlier was if you had previous experience or something, and you can always say no to some piece of the RFP you mentioned. Does that, in your opinion, are you awarding, government RFPs awarding work to those companies if everything else is great, but they're missing something? Would you still choose another company with their submission that has done everything, maybe not as well? Or I don't know if there's levels of how you score these things, but is not being able to do a P or having enough experience in one piece of the RFP, how big of a factor is that in the decisions? I'm wondering if we see that we don't do or haven't done a piece of it, is it even worth pursuing, knowing that we can do everything else, exceptionally?
So what do you think, Chris? Do I have to come into when you and I are working together? Do we have to be a perfect match, or can we be just a good match?
Yeah. Well, good is better than perfect.
I tend to agree with that. So, the government's going to lay out what their ideal situation is, but that's when you get into the social and emotional factors I talked about briefly. So I would never shy away from a contract because I'm not a perfect match to somebody. I also, whenever I'm responding to an RFP, or I'm looking at an RFP, I don't really try to make it fit me. It needs to fit me. Okay. So that's the other thing. So when I look at it, it needs to be the one I wanted to find. And then going in and really selling my company and what my work habits are to them. I don't know if that makes complete sense. And I've been doing this for a while. And I've bid on and won over 400 different contracts in 34 states in the 30 years. So I've got some, when I go in there, I don't bid on every single project. And you look and you build what I have here are called indicators of success. I'll see this as something that catches my attention, and I try to translate my work and what I've done in the past to what they're seeking to do. And oftentimes, it's not a perfect match to what they're looking for, but I might help them explain how I can advance farther than what they were looking for, or how what this is why they would need to hire me in order to get to where they wanted to go. So, hope that helps.
Yeah. You know, because like just to add to that, because I think that we can get so wrapped up into, okay, here's what they're looking for. But so many times when we're purchasing a product or we're purchasing a service, we expect the expert to guide us to what perfect looks like. You know what I mean? Like, you can't leave it up to me. Like, here's what I want, because I'm not as educated as you are about what you do. So maybe the picture that I'm painting of what I want is very different. And it's up to you to lead me and guide me and saying, okay, here's the best way to solve that problem. Here's what hangs in the balance if we don't do it, if we do it your way or this way, here's some possible unintended consequences. Here's what I'm recommending. So we want to gently lead and guide our people as opposed to just agree with them that, okay, I can do it your way. I'm not smart enough to really know my way. I need a guide. I need an expert who can, take me through the journey and give me a successful outcome. And you got to help give me a vision of what a successful outcome looks like. And by the way, this has been proven too. This is not an opinion. Vision's more important than price when it comes to customers. Your customer has a problem and they want to see the solution. They want to see themselves at the other end, and it's going to be just fine. And if I can give my customers vision, that's more important than I'm the cheapest person out there.
Good answer. I tell you what I'm going to do, Chris, if you don't mind. I'm going to actually stop the YouTube live at this point. And so for something to folks that actually want to communicate with each other online, and this will take it so it won't be so public, and you can start sharing your information back and forth. Some individuals want to work together here. Let me just see where that function is where I can stop that live session.